What's up, Star Wars fam? I'm Chris Ryons, and with me is my Quick Shot Star Wars Comics Preview team member and force and voice behind Jam Transmissions, Rik Villanueva. So some big news has dropped in the realm of Star Wars comics this past week that Rick and I want to talk about. But before all that, do your bros a solid and give us a like, a subscribe, and give us your thoughts in the comments down below, because we want to hear what you have to say about the news that we're about to talk about today. And that is both Charles Soule and Madibek Musabekov's Star Wars run and Greg Pak and Raffaele Ienco's Darth Vader run are coming to their inevitable ends by the end of 2024 as they finally reach the events of Return of the Jedi. So we want to talk about each run as a whole and discuss where we think each era for these main books are going to be going, except for the Vader book, because, his story is over. Or is it? So, Rick, why don't you start us off? Let us know what you think about the Darth Vader run as a whole.
The Vader run has been, when it's strong, it's strong. I think the Vader run started off really strong with the all of the Sabe inclusion and the Handmaidens going way back to the beginning of this thing. And I don't want to say that it's faltered so much, but it's been kind of wild trying to keep up with everything that's going on in this thing, because this series, I think, more than some of the other Star Wars comics, excluding Dr. Aphra, which isn't running right now, has dipped into some of the more wild elements of Star Wars.
Yes.
With this shield that he's got, the fact that Vader kind of loses control of the Force for a time, and has to try to find some help otherwise. And then what's happening right now with, for lack of a better term, kind of like a almost a political kind of storyline with the Schism Imperial, and all of that stuff that's going on with Sly Moore. So overall, I've enjoyed it. Comics is kind of the one place where I think Star Wars can really, really push the envelope with the weird. I think the visual aspects of comic storytelling kind of lends itself to that more so than some of the stuff in, I think, the books are on screen. So it's been a lot of fun these last couple of years. And I think it makes sense to end these series with issue 50, where the initial runs ended at 75, because there's if we want to look at the canonicity of timelines and stuff like that, there's more time between A New Hope and Empire as opposed to Empire and Return of the Jedi, and they've packed this thing down to the minute of how much stuff they put in what is potentially a year's worth of time with the whole Dark Droids stuff and the Hidden Empire stuff. And it's a lot. There's been a lot of stuff in this one, basically, year of storytelling.
Yeah. I one of the things I loved about Pak's run is the love letter to the prequels that the Vader series started out as. And it, yes, it did get weird, not bad, but weird as it went on. But there were still inklings of his love for the prequels and going back to, with Sabe and the Amidalans and all that stuff, and sprinkling that in throughout this whole thing, as well as the political intrigue. And, of course, the Crimson Dawn trilogy and all that with that, and seeing this abusive relationship between Master and Apprentice, between Palpatine and Vader, which is why, some people think Vader in The Return of the Jedi seems weaker than he does in Empire Strikes Back. And I think this is his, maybe not his spirit is crushed, but maybe it is kind of crushed. We'll see how this all ends out for him. Because he is very much disgruntled through this run. And then by the time Luke, he meets up with Luke in Return of the Jedi, he's like, you don't know the power of the dark side. I must obey my master. There's all this, and it's pointless to resist and all that. It's he's been beaten down.
Yeah, his spirit has definitely been trampled, if not completely crushed to this point.
Yeah, and all the the lessons, these abusive lessons that Palpatine gave to Vader. It just all lends beautifully, I think, and almost seamlessly to where we see Vader in Return of the Jedi. So I'm so excited to see how this all ends. I mean, you know what? And there were some things in Pak's run that were weird that I was like, this is, it wasn't bad. It was just slightly off for me. And that's what is her name? Because I want to say Tauntaun, but I know that's not it. I think she's a senator or some kind of imperial officer. Oh, a governor.
The one with the one eye, like with the eye patch. Is that the one you're talking about?
I think so. She had the it's in the later issue. She had the armor.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. That's like the beginning. Yeah, she pops in earlier and then pops up at the very beginnings of the Schism Imperial.
Yes.
Yeah,
like that run with Kidster and whatnot. I was like, this is, and like the what I call from like any GI Joe heads out there, the Weather Dominator that they were working on, all that stuff. It was like it's kind of weird, but I mean, it still fit, So yeah, as weird as as it got, I am hyped to see how this all wraps up and how this I think it's going to cross over at some point with the main title, I think. But
I think it would kind of have to. I mean, these last couple of issues, maybe like 46, 47, somewhere around that. Well, really since the Free Comic Book Day issue, they've seeded these books crossing over with each other, kind of having like overlapping storylines where Invader was it 46 or 47, the last issue that came out. There's like the B story with Luke leaving the rebellion to go talk to what's her ass that met up with Sabe in the Free Comic Book issue. I forget her name. So the fact that they even included that just in the Vader book is telling me that there's going to be some kind of a crossover there. Maybe not directly with Luke and Vader like face to face, but I think there's going to be some kind of the Falcons flying away from Vader's Star Destroyer or something. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be some other kind of a run in. I think before this is all said and done.
Yeah, I this is the one era of Star Wars where it was, at least for in canon, it was barely touched, and it's like I wanted to know more about this year or year and a half. I think is the timeline, like 18 months or something like that, between 5 and 6, and I think they have done a great job, and they packed in a lot.
Oh yeah,
into this year and a half, like not just this up with Vader, but of course with Soule's run with Commander Zara and that whole ordeal with that Imperial officer who was working under Tarkin and had this vendetta against the rebellion, of course, and Leia. Of course, once again, the War of the Bounty Hunters, Hidden Empire, Crimson Reign. They packed in so much and really made it worth it. There are a couple things that, to me, that are still left out, which I'm hoping that they can get to in these last couple issues, but I doubt it unless it's going to be like its own side issue or something like that, which would be, I mean, there's a lot of focus on Lando right now, and we still have not seen the Battle of Tanab. It's done in the EU, right? I don't remember, bro. Yeah. Like if I'm being honest with you, I'm sure it probably is somewhere, but I can't honestly remember. Somebody smarter than us is going to be like, yeah, dopes, it's in blabbity blab this story. So right, from 1996. How do you not remember that?
Right. I do want to say, like, the way that they structured all of these stories in between the two movies, it seemed like there's not a whole lot of time to do so. It is jam packed. I joked like to the minute where we almost know when they were going to the bathroom. They put so much into the timeline here. Yeah. But I think there's enough differences in these stories that you can see the overlap without things like pressing down too much on another story too much. Like you mentioned, like the War of the Bounty Hunter stuff and how that overlapped with the main titles at the time. Even including after Vader, Star Wars, and you can see how these stories were not so much like just packing in the time, but how they kind of wove them together to really just fill out this timeline. And the weird thing about too, like in wrestling with the idea of canon is like where do you fit in other stories with these characters in this time if they want to? I think it's smart that they're doing Outlaws in this time, away from everything else. We'll probably see some cameos of characters in the game here and there. Clearly, Han, he ain't doing nothing anyway.
Right, he's chilling. Literally.
He's just chilling. And But I think it is smart to do that, and it is a lot. I think in between A New Hope and Empire, while there's a lot there, it still feels like there's some gaps in the timeline of things that they can fill in, especially in terms of like Luke's character development in between the two movies, and we're really just our main three in between the two movies.
Yeah.
But we also I don't think we've had the same amount of character miniseries this time around in between Empire and Jedi like we did earlier on. There's been a few, and there's still a few ongoing right now, but nothing to the extent of what we got in the early days of this stuff.
Yeah. Like, I know one of the stories that I was hoping, just like the Battle of Tanab, we never got whatever happened on Ord Mantell with Han and Leia. I was waiting for that, but I'm like, it'll happen at some point.
It's in Legends. You can find this stuff in Legends.
Yeah, but according to Wikipedia, Legends doesn't mean nothing because Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Listen, Ki-Adi-Mundi don't mean nothing. Let's be honest. I don't give a damn. I just I just put away my Black Series figure of Ki-Adi-Mundi, and I love him because he's an idiot. But we're not here to talk about that. You know what? Actually, real quick, you want to talk about Ki-Adi-Mundi? You want to read about Ki-Adi-Mundi? Go back to the Prelude to Rebellion comics in the Dark Horse days. You can read about some Ki-Adi-Mundi shenanigans from back in like 98 or 97, whenever those books come out. If you want to read some of that stuff, but I don't give a damn. I don't give a nothing. Ki-Adi-Mundi, get out of here. Yeah. This is a Sunday. This ain't Monday. Chill out, son.
Ki-Adi Sundays. Let's do it. So yeah, and with Charles Soule's run, because as far as I'm concerned, that dude never misses. And I was so glad, when he got the nod to take over the main title. I was like, it's just gonna be fantastic, and it was. I don't think for me there was never a bad issue. Like he took out his slice of the Star Wars universe and expanded on these characters that we know and love over the past few decades, and really he layered them even more. I thought Luke's trauma right after what happened on Cloud City, the way he handled that, I thought was great. Yeah, Luke went through it, man. Like he was going through it, and he was having issues with connecting to the Force, and had to, and this started his journey to this more confident, stoic Jedi Knight that we see at the beginning of Return of the Jedi. And that is almost a Herculean task to take him from where we see him at the end of Empire to where we see him at the beginning of Jedi. And Charles Soule made it work. And the fact that this dude was able to weave in High Republic lore into this to help bring Luke up, like having that conversation with Elzar.
Yeah, it was Elzar.
Elzar Man on that that shroom planet. I thought was weird, but I thought that was great. And seeing him get his green kyber crystal, and I was one of those people that was like, it's Qui-Gon's kyber crystal, and he's got it, and everything's legacy, and this and that, and like it's not. It was something else, and it was something that he earned, and I thought that was fantastic.
The War of the Bounty Hunters storyline, kicking that thing off with, I think it was just the images of the black suit Boba Fett, was like, yo, what is this? What are they doing with this guy? And that was kind of like, was that around the time or just on the heels of the Book of Boba Fett? I think that was still kind of, we were still talking about all of that. And I think one of the smartest things about the War of the Bounty Hunters, just in general, was how the other bounty hunters were kind of woven in and out. I really love how 4LOM and Zuckuss were basically the old married couple right away. They were like Turk and JD from Scrubs, if you know what I'm talking about. Like they were just like super homies, those two. Was it Ethan Sachs, I think, just on Twitter the other day said something about that he basically made them Bert and Ernie.
That makes so much sense. Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, 100%. And somebody was like, talked about like their wedding or something like that. And he was just like, nope, they went straight to the old married couple.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he turned 4 LOM into like a giant spider that didn't have a memory. And Zuck is, you know, kind of pining over him. I think about the one-shot Bausch issue was top notch.
Yeah.
With all of the others of their species that I can't remember the name of offhand right now, but that was a really good issue. The introduction of Diva Lompop in all of that, who has a place in the current High Republic, well, more prominently in Defy the Storm.
Yeah.
That Jabba the Hutt issue, I mean, I had the chance to talk to Alex Segura last year about the one shot that he did and its connections to the Poe Dameron book that came out a couple of years ago. And it's just fascinating to me how these specific authors can keep things in their head or keep notes of things to connect these stories into the larger Star Wars tapestry. But yeah, I mean, there's just been so much in the course of this, like, you know, year and a half, and we haven't even talked about the main run of you know, the main Star Wars comic yet, aside from Luke and what he went through or is going through. Obviously, you know, clearly he is the main character, but you know, specifics of the main run where Nien Nunb pilots the Falcon for the first time over Coruscant when they do that sweep over the Imperial courtyard or whatever it is. And, you know, I mean, this was the era of comics that gave us the beat his ass Chewbacca line by Lando.
Bro. That's like my favorite beat his ass Chewbacca. It's like my favorite line.
That's it right there.
Yeah. Yeah. So many good things. Like I'm a big Star Wars Droids fan, the cartoon from 85.
Yeah.
And Soule in you know, his issues with the War of the Bounty Hunters brought in the Fromm gang. The Fromm gang is from Droids. And I was like, oh my God, he just made him canon. I'm like, that's it. Like, you know, that like, if I ever got a chance to write a Star Wars story, I'm bringing in so many of the, you know, these Droids characters as I can.
Man, we got the recanonization of Prince Shizor.
Yeah.
In this era.
Yeah, we did.
You know?
Yeah, we did.
We haven't seen him yet, but we heard the name.
Right. But still, no, that's fantastic, and that's something that could be, you know, that's him setting these little seeds for something that can grow a little bit later.
Maybe we'll see him in Outlaws.
Yeah,
we'll see some Black Sun in Outlaws,
and like in the nods, not just to the High Republic, but the nods to the sequel trilogy, with having Kes Dameron and Shara Bay, Poe's parents. Being a prominent part of the Star Wars run at times.
I will say regarding the two of them, when Shara ends up on the one Star Destroyer, and she's kind of like hiding out there, trying to basically just survive behind enemy lines, as it were. And then I think that's when the Crimson Reign started. One of the crossover events started, and it was just kind of like, hey, what happened to Shara Bay? She's been hanging out on a ship for a little while.
What is she eating?
Right. And then, you know, we eventually get back to her and all of that, but it was like that there was just that weird kind of, you know, month or two of whatever was for, I don't even know, 6 months, whatever the break was. Yeah. But then we finally, I think it was like Luke in one of the issues was like, hey, we should go check on Shara Bay and see how she's doing. And it's like, oh yeah, task force.
Her. Forgot about that. Hope she's okay. Yeah. Leia, you know, so Leia definitely had a nice arc in this one. The fact that she got to meet Kira and those two in that conversation, like, did wonders for both of their characters. And of course, for years with Lando, people were like, oh, he betrayed them, this is and that. He got to defend himself in a few of these issues, and I love that. I love that he, you know, he had to check Leia on a few things, you know, as far as this goes. And like, you know, like, what do you expect him to do? Like, the Empire was just like on his, you know, just right over him with that whole thing. He had to do something to keep the citizens of Cloud City safe. So,
well, with Lando's character, because I mean, it's still kind of ongoing right now, his trial, but I think of Billy D on the panel for the Rise of Skywalker, that celebration.
Did anybody die?
Yeah, Colbert's asking him about that. And yeah, he said, does anybody die? And it's just like, no, Maria's got a point. No, he is right. So to see all of that stuff kind of like on the page now, it's these shades of gray that we get with these characters in these in-between stories that it makes them that much more fascinating. And the bridges back to the Soule Lando miniseries, that gave us like the Momin Mask and Palpatine's pleasure yacht and all of that kind of stuff with, with Lobot and all of that kind of thing. And even Lobot's prominence with this one, with his weird, natty electrical dreads plugging into stuff.
He was trying to get that OSHA. He was doing that OSHA. That's what he was.
But he teased the bald dude with dreads.
Right.
He's still holding on. I'm here for that kind of stuff to know, because Lobot's on screen and we don't see him do anything except for answer to Lando's pager, his beeper, and he just opens his eyes, so we don't really see much. So to get like a little bit of character explanation for a few of these people that exist on the periphery is I think that's what the comics were built for in terms of Star Wars, even going back to the old Marvel days. As wild as those books were, in the 70s and 80s, I think like the current run of books can get wild, but I think they rein it in a lot more than the old books did, way back in the day.
Yeah. So as we get to these final issues, there's going to be a new era. Like that's one thing I asked in the Star Wars Comics Reddit page, and thankfully no one was a dick about it. But at least for that thread. So where do we think that the Star Wars main title is going to go after the events of Return of the Jedi? Like, do we pick up immediately afterwards, with Han, Luke, and Leia and all that? There's 30 years, between, Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. 32 years. There's so much you could do there. You can go into the year or something between 8 and 9. You can do past that. Where do you think? Where do you think it could go? Who do you think the main characters would be?
Man, there's so much open space there, especially between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. But the books have filled in some gaps concerning certain characters. Our legacy characters, Luke, Han, Leia, they're not in a ton of that stuff right after Return of the Jedi. But if we're sticking just to the comics, Shattered Empire picks up kind of right after Return of the Jedi. And that miniseries has been around for a little bit. That's when we get the two Force trees and all of that stuff that Luke's after. And then if we go into like the Rise of Kylo Ren comic book, what we see of Luke's the initial days of the training academy and all that, like we don't know how long that was around. We know at the end of this run, Luke is going to be talking to Ben as a little boy, I think, before this run ends. So who knows if it's him just like, Princess Bride style, like regaling him with the stories of things in the past. I think before this run ends, we should hopefully see Luke get or construct his green lightsaber. We'll see how similar or different that is to that deleted scene from Return of the Jedi. But as far as like the storytelling post Return of the Jedi, there's the part of me that says it has to be about Luke, Han, and Leia, about, the core, and Chewie and Lando and everybody else. There's a part of me that says it should. There's also the part of me that says, man, they've been through it and they need a break. Give us something else a little bit, with some other new characters, be that. Well, it was in the, what's the one book that they did? It was like Revelations last year, the one shot. There was the follow-up Afra story with the bounty hunter that's after her. There was, I'm trying to remember the other stories that were in that. But I think it would be cool to have Kes and Shara Bey doing stuff.
As mains, or maybe they have an arc within this run.
Maybe a little bit of both. I think initially what we're going to see is another launch of miniseries. So maybe we get, a new Rogue Squadron mini. Maybe we get, stuff that kind of ties in more with the Alphabet Squadron crew. Some kind of overlap there. There's so many different ways that they can go. It just unexplored eras. We don't know anything about what's happening with the Mandalorians after Return of the Jedi that are left on Mandalore. I mean, we see that in the show, but there's still people that are there. There could be some stories there,
and that's one thing that I would like to see. But every when I bring it up to Ethan Sachs or whatnot, he's like, we can't even touch that because that's all Favreau, Filoni kind of thing.
Yeah, I get it. But I think it would still be kind of cool to get some kind of exploration of that stuff. I mean, there's probably going to just be some new characters. I can't think too much around the books where they could expand characters out. I'm sure there's some stuff. A lot of what's in my head right now has been High Republic, but I mean, in the last non-High Republic title that we got was The Living Force, and that's just prior to the Phantom Menace. So I don't really see a lot of overlap there post Return of the Jedi, but there could be any number of things. I mean, there could be more Kira stories after Hidden Empire finished, because that ending for her was a little bit ambiguous as to where she was going to go.
Yeah.
With who was it? Tonga's daughter. I forget who was it.
Cordelia.
Yeah, Cordelia.
Yeah.
And all of that. So there could be some pickup there. I mean, we could get. Who is it? What's her name from Rise of Skywalker? With the gold helmet. That was that.
Zori Bliss.
Zori Bliss, the Bliss family. That's all from the Poe Dameron book. That they kind of had a grip on some kind of criminal stuff that was going on. So I mean, there could be some stories there. And it's really hard to try to think of stuff that's disconnected from already existing stories. Because I mean, there's also the Force Collector book, the YA book, where that dude was
favorite. Dude, it's one of my favorite books.
That book is really cool. That book flew under the radar. I think more people should be checking that book out, because that book is it's very much a love letter to the original trilogy, the same way that, or to the saga that Lost Stars is, where you're seeing things on the periphery, and the kid in Force Collector is essentially living out the original trilogy through these artifacts.
You pretty much got to watch that movie with Force Psychometry,
Yeah, so he's hunting down all of these different things, and we find out that was it his grandfather, I think was hidden away. Was a Jedi, and it was hidden away somewhere. He comes to find him living on some isolated world by himself, and there's lots of different ways that they can expand on this stuff. And I think it's really easy for me to say they can pull from this book or that book, because that's a lot of what I consume is the books. But I think it would be cool to see something completely fresh and new. I think it would be cool to get stuff that we've seen on screen in The Mandalorian. Maybe we get, Grief Karga in a comic book. R.I.P. Carl Weathers. It still hurts. Maybe we get, that Navarro build up, early on, or more Imperial Remnant stories, people falling. And I think the timing works out well now with the Chris Kemshall's book, The Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire, that's coming out in July. I think that could be a good place to maybe seed some of these stories. And I think Chris just today posted something on Twitter about he was at Lucasfilm about a year ago and took pictures at the Yoda Fountain, but he couldn't release them because it was a secret meeting about this book. So any seeded stories could have been in place around then, at least the inklings of, so that, announcements could come soon if there's anything connected to it as far as Imperial Remnant. We could get Peridia stories with Thrawn and Ezra. Well, there's so many things that they can do. More Ahsoka stories.
So here's my thought on that. Before I was what's going to be next? For the main title, the main Star Wars title. But what if it's like you were saying? What if we get, anthology comic series, like just like mini series and like just like these different stories around the entire galaxy instead of one overarching title named Star Wars.
Right. I think it would make total sense if you think about it in terms of when the original trilogy ended in 1983. Essentially, even though there were books before that, essentially everything grew out from that. You know what I mean? Like everything went broader, not taller when it comes to the storytelling. Yeah. And I think it would make sense now in the narrative view of comic books to completely branch out, where Return of the Jedi is kind of like the last focal point for a while, to branch out into all of these different kinds of stories. And we can still go backwards and get the Battle of Tanab one shot. We can still get, Doc Ondar stuff from Galaxy's Edge. We could still get Halcyon stories because they were still cruising around. All that's still in business in the galaxy far, far away. Maybe not. Yeah, there's a ton
here,
but it could be. Yeah, I'm thinking it more in terms of like closer to the end of Return of the Jedi as opposed to doing something way later on. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're going to do things with, sequel trilogy yet. Not until they hammer out the details, at least of the first movie. Mm-hmm. And with the interview that happened this week with Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, talking about, she's been in talks with like George Lucas and Dave Filoni and stuff with this Rey movie. I think once that's all, hammered out, maybe we'll start to see some expanded stuff for Rey and sequel characters, which I think would be really cool because, again, Charles Soule with the Poe Dameron run was solid. I'd love to get more Finn stories in the First Order. Come on, him, to see what it was that seeded his turn. I think we've only ever had one story of Finn in that Before the Awakening book.
Yeah, there's that, and then he had a one-shot comic that came out. I'm thinking late 2019 or 2020.
That was when they did that whole one-shot series for everybody.
Yeah, but here's what they need to do. Got to stop making him a buffoon. They must stop making him a buffoon. Like mm-hmm. if anything, from those like Before the Awakening books, where it's stated that he is like top of his class.
Yeah, he's skilled.
Yeah, like I need to see that, not just the janitor. Yes, I need more of that. But I'd love to get that more. Give me some stuff with Jana and her division. Mm-hmm. Show what happened when they broke free of that mindset, and was that like, are they all a bunch of force sensitive troopers? Yeah.
Give me a book about the Colossus and the Resistance group. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's so much. Like post my dog Kanan agrees with me. My dog's barking back here. He agrees.
Kanan knows.
Kanan knows what's up.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a shirt. You can't see it, but give me a Meeber Gascon story. I don't give a damn. See him, I got my heavy right here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He survived. He's still alive.
He's kicking. He's still out there giving Mace Windu the finger from time to time.
Hell yeah.
And you know what? Just on the horizon, we got that Mace book coming out in the fall. The Glass Abyss. So there's a lot. There's so many different directions that they can go in. The sky's the limit from this point. Yeah. And I apologize, the dog is barking, but
it's Kanan. It's all right.
It is Kanan. He's got opinions. Yeah. None of which I'm interested in right now because this is my time. But there's so much more that they can do. I would like to see them kind of move away from legacy characters just for a little bit, just to kind of let those characters breathe. Give us a chance to miss them a little bit. Maybe just like a year away.
Mm-hmm. And then start the main series after that.
Yeah, wait 6 months and then announce, hey, our mains are coming back, and in that interim they can give us, like I said, all of those, anthology miniseries or one shots or whatever they want to do with all of that. Because I think what they're doing right now by ending this story right now is giving the end of the High Republic time to breathe, because that's going to happen next year in the spring and summer. Mm-hmm. So for the sickos like me who try to keep up with everything, if you're going to have some kind of epic conclusion to this comic book run happen just before the end of, or try to start something new when the High Republic is, I'm air quoting, ending in publishing, it might be a lot of emotional, like, compartmentalization, you know what I mean, to keep these stories separate and not get bogged down by this thing ending, this other thing ending, this thing starting, you know what I mean? Like there's going to be a lot of you know, people, I think, going through this the same way that I do, that it's going to be hard to put it all in order. So,
yeah. And I am ready for whatever they give us, because I am a shill like that, and I just love Star Wars, bro. Just give me,
same.
Just give me, and I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I need. If you want to call me a shill, call me a shill. You know,
I wouldn't.
Yeah. Cool. Well, bro, thanks for talking to me about this, man. This is something that I wanted to talk about, and especially talk about with you. To, you know, get your thoughts on where you think, you know, this whole run could go after, you know, these two epic series end. So thanks so much for you know, for chilling me to talk about this. Thank you, Kanan, for chiming in.
Yeah, he's got opinion. One day he'll be on the show and he's going to have like a British accent. So I'm like, well, what else are you going to do?
He's not going to sound like Freddie Prinze Jr.?
What, talking about wrestling and stuff? Hell no. We ain't talking about that. Anyway, thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. And, you know, comics is the one thing that I don't get a chance to talk about a ton. And being a part of Broaxium these last couple years has given me the opportunity to really, you know, kind of hone my my comics love a little bit more than when I was just buying floppies every week. Because I think there's something to like the collecting side of comics as opposed to just the consumption of comics. It's really helped me kind of shape my opinions on the comics as of late since coming aboard. And I've had a blast doing it. You know, right now doing the Vader run and that Inquisitors run coming up next. And we didn't even talk about that. There's so much. There's so much,
dude. So much. Well, listen, we got to do this again. Like maybe sometime, like when these two series end, we'll do another retro one.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do that.
About it. All right, man. Thanks for coming and talking to us, and everyone out there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Until then, may the Force be with you.
Path to the Alderaan system.
Yes, indeed. If it's a fast ship.
Fast ship. Never heard of the Millennium Falcon.
Should I have?
It's the ship that made the castle run in less than 12 parsecs.